Hello and welcome everyone to F1 2018. F1 2018? Yeah, F1 2018, but F1 2019 Team Championship prediction. And this is where I predict the championship, the F1 2019 championship, and how it's going to plan out in order, sort of thing, from worst to last. Worst to last? I meant best or last to best, sort of thing. Or last to first. So, obviously, if anyone is new into the F1 world, may I just welcome you. But firstly, there are 10 Formula 1 teams. We have, first time with Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Force India, Williams, Renault, Red Bull, Toro Rosso, which is basically Toro Rosso, but Red Bull, Haas, McLaren, Alfa Romeo, and that's it. So 10 Formula 1 teams that will compete over the course of a 21 race calendar next season, or this season technically, should I say, because it's still very, very early on in the new year, so I'm still just adjusting to that phrase, because obviously it's this season coming up, but it's next season, because obviously I'm still thinking of 2018, if you understand what I mean, because 2018 is like, just imagine the sunset setted. It's about, let's say, 9 o'clock, maybe at night time. Maybe it's midnight. Right now it's midnight. Yeah, let's say. End of January, it will be maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. February, it'll be about 1 or 6 in the morning. By the time we get to Australia, it will be 7 a.m. in the morning, sort of thing. And then by the time we get into Silverstone, that type of, that's when it becomes 12 p.m. or, 1 p.m. sort of stuff again, and then when we get to Abu Dhabi, of course, it's like 7 p.m. in the afternoon sort of thing. If you could do it in a 24-hour clock, that's how the Formula 1 season would look. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, 10 teams compete over 21 rounds of the Formula 1 season. Basically, that's what happens in Formula 1. And they all come up with new ideas to create the fastest car on the planet, effectively to lap around certain tracks, of course. But yeah, anyway, so gonna get into this video now. So basically, this is where I predict the top 10, and in number 10 or 10th place, finishing last, I predict Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso last year's driver lineup was Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley. Brendan Hartley is no longer at the team. He's been sacked, more or less, or not been given a contract extension. And Pierre Gasly, he's off to the senior Red Bull team, or the sister Red Bull team, going off to Red Bull Racing. And yeah, in replacement, we have Alexander Albon and Danny Kvyat. Now, Danny Kvyat, great driver. He's already had many podiums. I'll just actually tell you some things about Danny Kvyat. In fact, I'll just actually get, some facts about, F1 drivers before we get into this properly. But, yeah, Danny Kvyat, basically, an ex-Formula 1 driver back in the day, and, yeah, I think Danny Kvyat is certainly one of Formula 1's better talents in a way. But the thing is that I struggle with Danny Kvyat a lot is actually not necessarily, it's not necessarily, who is, it's the thing that I struggle with Danny Kvyat is Danny Kvyat certainly isn't my cup of tea. Overall, during his Formula 1 career, just to let you know, he's had 2 podiums, 133 points, and highest race finish of 2nd. And highest grid position is 4th. Now, in all honesty, that ain't bad actually, when we think of it. But he's only had, during his time in Formula 1, he was in Formula 1. When was he in Formula 1 from? 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. So he's only been in Formula 1 for 4 seasons, 133 points. There's been a lot more successful drivers than Danny Kvyat, point is. That's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, in my opinion, whether or not he'll be able to bounce back, during his 4 Formula 1 seasons, the first 2 were okay. 2016 that went tits up, didn't it? After, where did he get sacked? I think it was after Russia. He got sacked and replaced by Max Verstappen, of course, who we all know and love. But yeah, Danny Kvyat, obviously, ex-Formula 1 driver. So yeah, for me, I just think I struggle to see how well he does. Alexander Albion, now, I don't know too much about the kid, in all fairness, so I don't really want to criticise Alexander Albion. He's from Thailand, so, that's one thing. Technically, that's his recognised country, Thailand, but he was actually born in London, England, so in a way he's actually also English, in my opinion. But, I've recognised him as Thailand because that's where he wants to be recognised as. In terms of World Championships, obviously none as of yet. But yeah, Alexander, Albion, I don't know too much about him, he was, I'll just, say some things, I find this a really, really weird fact. Alexander Albion's first word was in Italian, and that word was Ferrari. It feels that, to me, I don't know whether your first word would be Ferrari. It feels a bit made up, that story does. Who knows, though? I guess when you're young, you probably, So yeah, just to let you know, Alexander Albion, was basically he got pipped to the GP3 title by Charles Leclerc, just to let you know. Also rates Albion as a top guy and a top class driver. So yeah, he's been rated by Charles Leclerc, I guess, but, I don't know, obviously, is he the new big talent on the block? I just don't know. I look forward to seeing him in some sense because I just don't know much about him as a driver. I'm excited for that, but is he going to be that Formula 1 material? That we'll know, and that's why I've rated them. I think Toro Rosso probably has the weakest driver lineup next season, alongside maybe one of the weaker packages. If it goes wrong with Honda. If it goes good with Honda, the driver lineup may be weak, but it could still end up alright for Toro Rosso. So basically, that's why I've had to rate them so low in this. I'm rating them on driver rating, and on the basis that, cause I know Pierre Gasly was a good driver, 100%, but, Alexandria and Kvyat, I could say Kvyat's a good driver, but, the thing is, I just think, this driver lineup is probably the weakest driver lineup Toro Rosso's probably had since maybe John-Eric Verne and probably Daniel Ricciardo in some sense, or maybe a little bit before that. This is probably the weakest driver lineup anyway Toro Rosso's had for maybe a good 5 or 6 years, in my opinion. Right, in 9th place, I have put, drum roll please, so yeah, in 9th place I have put Williams. And yeah, Williams, in a way, obviously last season finished in a disappointing 10th. That 100% is the worst championship in the hybrid era. But yeah, for me, obviously Williams, George Russell and Robert Kubica. Now, for me, the problem for the 2018 Williams wasn't really the car itself. I actually think if Felipe Massa was in that car and Williams would have scored many, many more points, then, Toro Rosso, in fact, would have been closer to Toro Rosso. And this is the thing for me. The driver lineup, in that car for me just wasn't good enough. Wasn't the cut. Whereas next season, I think they've got a much, much better lineup. Last season, they had Sergei Sorokin and Lance Stroll. Now, I don't rate Lance Stroll as a driver. Obviously, he's left for, not Formula 1, but Williams. And in my opinion, thank God for that miracle, honestly. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be in Formula 1. If you've earned your way to Formula 1, fine. That's good. But then you've got to deliver in Formula 1. And if you cannot deliver, he's had 2 seasons now to prove whether he can deliver or not. And I'm sorry to say, he cannot deliver. And for me, that's a shame. Because when I first saw Lance Stroll, in fact, I was a Lance Stroll fan in some sense. Last season, I actually thought I'd give this guy a chance, but now he's had 2 seasons. He's been a dick for them 2 seasons. He's not delivered for them 2 seasons, and I'm glad he's out of Williams, such a historic Formula 1 team. But at the same time, even though Lance Stroll is maybe a portion of the blame, he's certainly probably a little bit better than Sergei Sorokin. Sergei Sorokin was not maybe the ideal package either. But the thing about Sergei Sorokin, at least he was respected by, I think, the team. He was a bit more respectable or respecting to the team as well. He wasn't like Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll was practically coming out with the SHIT word every race, calling the car SHIT, shit. He was slamming the team, slamming the car, and that isn't positive. Whereas Sorokin, on the other hand, was a bit more courteous, I think, which I liked. But was he maybe as quick as Lance Stroll? I don't know. Actually, you know what? There is argument to say he was quicker because he actually did out-qualify Lance Stroll. Quite comprehensively, in fact. But during the races, it just didn't click for him, really. During his Formula 1 career, only scoring 1 point. Now, obviously, that, in my opinion, yeah, okay, the car was not brilliant, but in my opinion, I think Lance Stroll and Sorokin could have done a better job with that car if they maybe were more talented drivers in that car. Now, not to say Williams still won't struggle next season. I don't think the problem is just drivers. I think the problem also does come down to that package as a car. But I think, they will have a much improved season next year, and that's what I'm hopeful of. And in their car, they will have, as I said earlier, Robert Kubica and George Russell. First, we'll start with the more experienced driver, Robert Kubica. So Robert Kubica is Polish. Obviously, he's driven in Formula 1 before, and during his time in Formula 1 has had an amazing 12 podiums, 273 points, 76 races entered, and highest finish is a win, which, it may be only 1 win, but it's a win. Now, he, in a way, is, a bit like Vettel, a bit like Rosberg, a bit like Hamilton. In fact, when I think of actually 4 drivers that came into Formula 1 before the 2010 season, we would actually have to say, we'd have to go for the successful ones, in my opinion. So we've got, when I think of it, so this was mid-2000s to 2010. So we've had Kubica, Rosberg, Hamilton, Vettel. We've also had others, don't get me wrong, but these are the most 4 successful out of that group. The 2 most successful out of that group has to be Vettel and Hamilton, but the 4 most successful, because there were so many that came in that time, in that one season of what I remember, or one of the seasons, we had so many new drivers coming into the grid. We always do. But obviously, Kubica was one of them, and he was one of the standout drivers. So yeah, he's one of their, I think, with that top 4. And, I think for Williams now to have one of the top 4 best drivers from that era, and probably still is one of the best drivers, in my opinion, is great. But in terms of young talent, alongside Kubica, we'll have George Russell. Now, George Russell, GP2 champion from last season, in my opinion, great achievement. When you enter Formula 1, I think it's nice to be a GP2 champion as well. I personally rate him as a driver, personally. He's actually no real younger than me or older than me, actually, which is quite embarrassing because, you know, when I say embarrassing, I don't mean it's shameful, like, because obviously it's a limited sport, but it's quite embarrassing to think I'm doing YouTube, he's a Formula One driver, and he's no older than me. In terms of where he was born in Kings Lynn, England, so yeah, not too sure where that is. If anyone knows, let's have a look where Kings Lynn, England is. Not sure. Pretty sure it's down south, if I'm correct. Like southern England. That's near Milton Keynes. Kings Lynn. 94 miles, so that's... So, Kings Lynn is near... where is it near? Oh, so actually ain't too far away from Milton Keynes. Up near Peterborough, Norwich, that area, Boston, yeah, near there. So yeah, yeah. So that's where George Russell's from. In my opinion, though, it doesn't matter where you're from anyway. But yeah, what I'm saying is, you know, I think Williams will have a much or a better season, an improved season at that. And yeah, you know, I think we've got a look forward to for that Williams team, and hopefully they will reassert themselves as one of the front runners in the future. Obviously, they did have a good period in Formula One recently, 2014 to 2016. Williams tends to have this dip in performance every now and again, and I think that's all that's happened. They've had a dip, but I've got no doubt at all they will recover, hopefully. But hopefully it won't take too long to get there. Anyway, right, next, then, is Alfa Romeo Sauber. And driver lineup for 2019 and for 2018 was Marcus Ericsson and Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles Leclerc, obviously off to Ferrari, good man for him. You know, cannot wait to see him partnering my favourite driver, Sebastian Vettel. And Marcus Ericsson off to IndyCar. Now, Marcus Ericsson last season, I don't think had a bad season actually last year. I would have liked to see him have maybe one more season in Formula One to see if he could actually improve. Because undoubtedly, I don't think really many could argue that this was Marcus's best season in Formula One, or last year was Marcus' best Formula One season. But having said that, did he deliver enough? Compared to Charles Leclerc, no. Marcus Ericsson, you would expect maybe as the older driver to do better. But yeah, Charles Leclerc absolutely floored Ericsson. Also, did Ericsson do enough in his Formula One career? Obviously joined, I think, in 2014 or 13, one of the two, with the Caterham team. Then, obviously, since, I think, 2016 or 2015, one of the two, he's been at Sauber. And none of them seasons for me, apart from this one, has been a standout performance. And arguably, that Sauber, obviously, with the Ferrari partnership, has been improved, obviously. And, you know, that could be also the reason why Charles Leclerc did so successful. We can't forget that. Because obviously Ericsson was able to score points. This season, obviously, because of change of driver lineup for both drivers, really, I've gone with a bit more of a different lineup, or a different, how can I put it? I've gone with a bit more of a conservative view on this one. So I've said that, so the new driver lineup will be Kimi Raikkonen from Ferrari from last year, and of course who's finished 103 times on the podium, so a lot more than a majority of drivers. 1,816 points to his name, 294 Grand Prix entered. So next season, if I'm correct, he'll be very, very close to actually beating that record, most Grand Prix entered. one World Championship and highest finish first, but 21 race wins to his name, which makes him technically, of what I'm aware, the most successful Finnish driver of all time. So for me, Kimi Räikkönen, brilliant talent, but he is old. The thing about Kimi Räikkönen, he is old. He's 39 now. So he's almost knocking on 40. Like Michael Schumacher raced into his 40s. He actually raced till 43, Michael did, in all fairness to Michael Schumacher. But, Kimi Räikkönen, 40, almost years old now. Like, in 2019, he will be 40. When is his birthday? Let's have a quick look, actually, quickly. His birthday is later on this year. So, yeah, he's almost 40, Kimi Räikkönen. For me, he's just staying in Formula 1. I have no idea what for. He's achieved everything I think a Formula 1 driver can achieve, more or less. Okay, yeah, he could win the World Championship, you could argue. But what is he going to achieve at Sauber that's realistic? Maybe a points finish? But is that... It's realistic, but is it really what you want? Don't get me wrong. If I was in Raikkonen's shoes, I would have gone out at Ferrari and said, you know what, I'm retiring. Thank you, Formula 1, for the amazing period I've had in F1. But I think it's my time to hang up the shoes, or the helmet, or whatever you want to say. But yeah, for me, it just doesn't make sense. However, at the same time, I think Kimi Räikkönen could be beneficial at Sauber, because, of course, we are seeing new lad Antonio Giovinazzi promoted into Sauber. A Ferrari junior driver himself, coming out of that Ferrari junior drivers program, still is contracted probably to the Ferrari team in some sense. But yeah, obviously, Sauber, obviously, losing one young talent, gaining another through that Ferrari driver program. And yeah, Giovinazzi, so far entered 2 Formula 1 Grand Prix, so far no points. The only 2 races he's entered was at the beginning of 2017 as a replacement driver for, I think it was Verlaine, Pascal Verlaine, who was a Mercedes driver back in the day. But yeah, Giovinazzi, once again, during his 2 races, he did show some talent, in all honesty. But yeah, I've ranked Sauber at 8th place because I just don't think they've got as strong as a lineup as last season. And if anything, it could be really, really close between them, Toro Rosso, and Williams, I think, next season. It could be, once again, a season for, Sauber to regret in terms of driver lineup. However, having said that, also, I would like to say, actually I could be completely wrong with Sauber. It will either be a season that will be very, very tough, a very difficult fight between them, Toro Rosso and Williams, or it could be the other way around. In fact, they could have another decent season, actually, in Formula 1. I think it's going to be difficult to tell which way this one will go. But yeah, if I had to put my money on it, if I was a bookmaker, I'd probably sort of be 50-50. I'd have to sit on the wall for this one. Because I think this is a mixture. You've got the young, inexperienced, plus you've got the old experience, but could be losing a bit of his speed. So, yeah. Right, next. Then, let's have a look who I've put next. In 7th place, Force India. And yeah, Force India, then, technically now Racing Point. So let's refer to them as Racing Point. So yeah, Racing Point, then obviously, then in what is technically 7th place. And the reason why I've rated them in this position, obviously, is because, for 2 reasons. One, a weaker driver lineup. And this is really what's dictating right now next season, I think. It'll be based on driver lineups and financial situation. And this is what I'm saying. Driver lineup for Racing Point is pretty poor. Or it's okay. It ain't poor, but it's okay. It's probably the strongest driver lineup out of the other three, but actually no, I'm going to retract that. It's probably the next strongest lineup out of the three that I've just said. So let's say this was a ranking of driver lineups. I'd say Williams have got the best. Then it has to be Racing Point, Sauber, Toro Rosso. That's how I would have to rate it, if that makes sense. And in terms of financially, it would be Toro Rosso, probably Sauber, Williams, Racing Point, if that makes sense. But driver lineup, Williams, Racing Point, Sauber, Toro Rosso. But that's what I'm saying. But that's why I am saying this is going to be not a season for Force India to forget, or Racing Point to forget, shall I say. But Racing Point will obviously have Sergio Perez, but will be saying goodbye, or have said goodbye now, to Esteban Ocon. And personally, one of them I agree with, the other I don't agree with. I agree with Racing Point keeping Sergio Perez. He's done a good job for them over the years. You know, he's been loyal to them, and that's nice to see, a partnership working well. But Esteban Ocon saying goodbye to a future talent. I understand some of the reason maybe behind it, but in a way I certainly don't understand another reason. Why would you get rid of a very, very talented Formula 1 driver? Surely, you know, you could have kept him, you know, for another season, Esteban Ocon. I feel sorry for Ocon because I feel so sorry actually for many of the, you know, Mercedes young drivers actually. Pascal Wehrlein, you know, look at him now in Formula E. Formula E. Now, I'm not saying Formula E is a terrible sport. In fact, I think Formula E is the future. But is it the best sport right now that I would want to be in it? Is it the pinnacle of motorsport? No. The pinnacle of motorsport is still Formula 1. And I think that is a fact. No matter how much someone may try to argue with it, the pinnacle of motorsport currently is Formula 1. Formula E is certainly catching up, but it's not the pinnacle. But yeah, to probably chuck out one of the best drivers on the grid, in my opinion, it's shameful. And yeah, to replace him with Lance Stroll, you know, is even more shameful. Like, if you're going to chuck out the best Formula 1 driver, or one of the best Formula 1 drivers on the grid, you've got to replace them with another good young driver. And Force India, Racing Point, whatever you want to refer them to as, hasn't done any of that. In fact, they've done the complete opposite and replaced them with another knob. Or with a knob. So, yeah, in my opinion, it's shameful. I'll just give you some intel of Sergio and Lance Stroll. So, starting with Sergio Perez then. So, Sergio Perez is a Mexican Formula 1 driver. He's so far has had 8 podiums, so relatively successful in all fairness. 529 points, 157 Grand Prix so far entered, and highest grid position is 4th. Highest finishing position is 2nd. And yeah, he's I think 30 something, just under 30 years old. Yeah, so yeah, not too bad for his age. I think he's 30 years old or 29 years old, one of two. But yeah, still quite a young driver. Was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, something like that, you know. Yeah, so yeah, relatively successful driver. In my opinion, one of the best. Or one of the average Formula 1 drivers. But Lance Stroll, driving for Racing Point, of course. Yeah, obviously, Lance Stroll, Racing Point, will be next season. He's from Canada. So far in his Formula 1 career, has had one podium. However, that podium was a fluke, should I say, because that Baku 2017, I think we can all agree, was a slightly chaotic race. I think majority of the Formula 1 drivers on that race were smoking a bit of the old crystal meth. But yeah, in terms of points, 46 points, and races entered 41. But when we actually look at that 46 points out of 41 races, that's like it's less than 1.5 points a race, really, if we actually think of it. That's how terrible Lance Stroll has been, really. Okay, yeah, last season he may have not had the best car, but 2017, sorry mate, no excuses. Like, if we just, let's have a look, 46 divided by 41, it's 1.12195 points per race. So yeah, virtually a point a race. Virtually nothing really when we think of it. Yeah, for me, just not good enough. Highest race finishing position is 3rd times 1, and highest grid position is 2nd, around Italy. So yeah, may have a little bit of speed in him, but not much. And from Montreal, Canada. But the thing is, his father, in some sense, bought this team as well, of Racing Point. So Daddy's little son is racing for Daddy's team, or son, or you know the drift. Because Lance Stroll's father, Lawrence Stroll, actually bought a share in Force India, or Racing Point, should I say, and he was probably the most influential guy in that team, who insisted on not having Lance Stroll, otherwise the deal would not be completed. So yeah, in my opinion, I hope they have, in a way, I hope they have a bad season, but at the same time, you know, I hope Lance Stroll has a terrible season, a season to regret. But at the same time, I hope Force India has a good season, because I do like Force India, because obviously back in the day that was the Jordan team, and yeah, for me that team, you know, obviously means a lot. Like, at one point, in a way, actually that was before Red Bull, my local team, in some sense. In fact, Jaguar was more local than that, but that's my second most local team, in a way, to where I was born, because I was born in Milton Keynes, and Silverstone's only up the road where Force India is based. So yeah, you know, and also they've had quite decent success with cars in the past. They've not been a bad team. For a small team, for a team that has not much financial budget, they're probably the best team with a small financial budget currently. So yeah, but yeah, let's see what they can do this season. But I think they'll probably only finish a highest of 7th due to Lance Stroll. Right, in then 6th position, and realistically, I just want to clarify. Even though I say Racing Point will probably finish in 7th, I just want to clarify, they could actually finish in 4th, because I think any of the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that I'm gonna say, from Racing Point to Renault, okay, and I've sort of given away one of my other predictions, but Racing Point to Renault, okay, could actually finish all inside the top 3 or 4th position. You know, that's, you know, my belief. Right, in 6th position, and this may become a bit of a surprise for you, so all be ready to have a heart attack, is Red Bull Racing. Yes, Red Bull Racing I've placed in 6th position. And the reason behind that is because Max Verstappen, great driver, undoubtedly. Pierre Gasly, great driver, probably, undoubtedly, another talent for Red Bull. But, here's the big but, and boy, oh boy, it's a big but. If this Honda package goes wrong, then Red Bull are in trouble. Because, I'm sorry to say, no matter how good of an aero package you may have, nothing is gonna really help you with that Honda. And yeah, there was an argument Honda improved last season, but in a way, okay, don't get me wrong, we actually saw this in a similar thing in 2016. We all thought Honda were improving then, did they? No. So in my opinion, Honda, and Red Bull, how will that partnership go? I would not like to put my money on it. In fact, I would not like to be in that team at all. Because I think, it could go so many ways. It could be such a successful partnership. It could be such an unsuccessful partnership, like McLaren, Honda. It's just going to be so unpredictable, this one. Also, will they win the championship? I don't think so. I think, if anything, they will lose performance. Because, obviously, they're having to integrate a new engine into the car. And for me, obviously, we saw this with McLaren. Obviously, back in 2014, at the start of the hybrid era, they were with Mercedes-Benz engines. But then they changed to Honda in 2015. Okay, yeah, you could argue back then Honda had no experience in this hybrid era, whereas now they do. But at the same time, McLaren still had to integrate a new engine into their car. And Win has actually a new manufacturer ever improved Win a engine, or they've had to integrate a new engine into their car. Because if we actually look at McLaren Renault, for example, yes, McLaren Renault did well compared to maybe 2017, but at the same time, McLaren still had issues. It was not perfect. They were the slowest of all three Renault teams. So, for me, that says something. For me, that actually points something out to me. That McLaren did not get it right last season. And they still had engine failures. They still had penalties. They were still qualifying last at certain races. Stoffel Van Dorn, for the last few races of his Formula 1 career, was qualifying dead last majority of the time. So yeah, it was not a great end to that 2018. It was a good start, terrible ending. And yeah, for me that just says something. But yeah, I'll just give you now a bit of background on the two drivers that Red Bull Racing has chosen to take for the 2019 season. And Pierre Gasly, French driver, in fact will be the first Formula 1 French driver to race for Red Bull Racing, just want to point that out. From, obviously, France, was born in Rouen, and in fact, Rouen is one of my favourite cities in France. I don't like Pierre Gasly, I don't rate him too much myself, Pierre Gasly. He's a good driver, world champion, probably not. But yeah, Rouen, I do like Rouen. In fact, just to let you know, went there last year, fabulous place, astonishing. It's like a mini Paris. So far in his Formula 1 career, 29 points out of 26 race entries. Highest finishing position is 4th. Highest grid position is 5th in Toro Rosso. So yeah, for Max Verstappen though, obviously Max Verstappen already 21 years old, and in Formula 1, already 22 podiums to his name, 670 points, 81 races entered. Highest race finishing position is 1st. In fact, had 5 wins so far in his Formula 1 career. And highest grid position is 2nd. Birthplace or place of birth is actually Hasselt, Belgium. So actually he's Belgium realistically, but yeah, obviously his father's Dutch, technically. So yeah, he's technically racing for the Netherlands, but yeah, technically also Belgium. I never knew he was actually from Belgium. But yeah, So Max Verstappen also will be the oldest driver, I think, in Red Bull next year, which is pretty weird to say. 21 years old and practically best driver in that Red Bull team. Team leader, in fact. But I think for Max Verstappen, for me, has to improve next season, especially in that first quarter of the season. Because, yeah, the second half of the season was okay, but even then, we still saw immaturities from Max Verstappen. And is he mature? No. Is he quick? Yes. But I think he does need to mature now. He's taking on that lead role at Red Bull Racing. And even Vettel, he wasn't really, in my eyes, I never really class a driver as the lead driver until they are the oldest driver in the team, if you know what I mean. Vettel, yeah, may have been the most successful driver for Red Bull, but he wasn't really the lead driver, really, until 2012, I would have thought, really, properly, like, you know what I mean, because 2013 was when Webber became the second driver, number 2, really. Even though there was an argument that Vettel was always the number 1 driver, but most experienced driver, absolutely not. But yeah, Vettel, obviously, we'll come on to Vettel later. But yeah, 6th place for me. As I say, it could go horribly wrong. And I think 6th position would have to be the worst I would put them. Because I don't think it will end up too bad because of the Adrian Newey design, like always. But 6th would have to be the worst. The best I think they will achieve is 3rd. But they'll be certainly a lot further away from Red Bull and Mercedes. Ferrari and Mercedes than last season. And in a way, that's sort of given another 2 positions away. Also, we can't forget there will be a aero formula change this year as well, on top of the integrating new engine. So we have to bear that in mind. Right. In 5th place, I have put, and in a way, this may not come too much as a surprise, this one, McLaren. And yes, obviously, Fernando Alonso decided to retire firstly, and Stoffel Vandoorne has gone off to Formula E. Now, we'll come to Stoffel Vandoorne first, because in a way, I was watching the Formula E Grand Prix yesterday, and what I find funny about this, Stoffel Vandoorne cannot get a break, can he? Honestly. He's gone off to Formula E in the hope for a much better success, maybe a better car, in some sense, to do a much better job. And guess what? He cannot even score a point at the moment. He finished dead last. It's a joke. Right now, what can I say? The most unluckiest driver alive is this guy here. Whatever team he's going to, so far, he cannot even get beyond 22nd. He's actually gone lower, actually. He's done worse in Formula E than he's actually done in Formula 1. I want to point that out quickly. Because in Formula 1, the only position he could finish, realistically, or the worst position he could finish, was 20th. Whereas now he's finished 22nd. He's actually done worse in Formula E than he's ever done in Formula 1. And that's quite embarrassing. If I was Stoffel Vandoorne, I wouldn't be proud of myself right now. But yeah, no, I wish, in all fairness, Stoffel Vandoorne, he's only young in his Formula E career. I wish him, I would like to see him come back into Formula 1 at some point, because I don't doubt his talent, or his speed, or his capabilities. But at the same time, I think it was the right decision for him to go somewhere else. He looked a battered, he looked a wounded, he looked a dead man in McLaren. And you know what? When there's a dead wood in the team, you've got to get rid of. You've got either to leave yourself or to be gotten rid of. And that's what happened here. He was gotten rid of. Fernando Alonso, though, coming on to Fernando Alonso, decided to hang up his racing shoes then at the end of 2018. In a way, sad to see him go, but in a way, I think it was right time. He's had more or less everything in Formula One. He's a two-time world champion, a 31-time race winner, and what more could he ask for as well? Like, he's one of Formula One's probably most successful Formula One drivers in the early 2000s. But yeah, recently things haven't been good. He's also driven for some of the best teams in Formula One, driven for Renault, McLaren, Ferrari. When you just think about that, how many other drivers have done that? The only other driver I can think of that have done that, like, in a way, would have to be Schumacher. Benetton, Ferrari, Mercedes. Like, you know, maybe even Lewis Hamilton, but no, not really. Maybe Vettel to some extent. But yeah, you know, he's driven for probably some of the biggest names in Formula One, Fernando Alonso. And to retire, was it the right idea to retire? Probably. Was he the best driver? No. But did he deliver in his Formula One career? Yes. Should he be proud? Yes. So whatever Fernando Alonso does next, then that is going to be good for him. Now I'm just going to take a quick call. I will be back. We'll be back for part number 2 in just a second. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, as I was saying, McLaren obviously, you know, change of driver lineup for next year, you know, and McLaren have gone for, in my opinion, a better driver lineup for 2019. Lando Norris, a new British Formula One driver, finished runner-up to George Russell in GP2. So in my opinion, that isn't that bad when you think of it. And Carlos Sainz, another Spanish driver in Formula One. It will be his actual third Formula One team in Formula One. But so far during his Formula One career, has entered 81 Grand Prix and has scored 171 points. Now, for me, Carlos Sainz is actually a very, very good driver. I highly rate Carlos Sainz. Is he maybe the real McCoy? Will he be ever world champion? I just don't know. I think it's a bit like, so I've witnessed this with so many other drivers. For instance, Romain Grosjean, Mark Webber. It feels like for me, time is running away from him. And if it's going to happen, it's going to have to happen not soon, but it's going to have to happen sooner rather than later, because I just don't see him getting many more opportunities. Ferrari are full, Mercedes, are full, Red Bull are full, and these are, in a way, the top teams at the moment in Formula One. Maybe Renault could take him back at some point in the future, who knows, but, this is what I'm saying. For me, time is running away from Carlos Sainz. But yeah, I think the thing about McLaren next season, they will have a fresh driver lineup. I think they will have positivity in that team. And in a way, I think that's what that team needs. Like, I'm not saying Stoffel Vandoorne was a not positive guy. He was positive. But Fernando Alonso, on the other hand, yes, he's a successful driver. But when he wants to be negative, boy, he will be negative. And yeah, just some of his comments. GP2 engine, fantastic. This is slower than the old one. That was in Barcelona pre-season testing back in 2017. He said that comment. So yeah, so many controversial comments, not only on track but also off track as well. So for me, Fernando Alonso caused a lot of negativity in that McLaren team. Even in his last season, he was criticising McLaren to some extent, causing controversial moments. And yeah, McLaren, obviously, McLaren obviously decided eventually to, they didn't get rid of him, but I don't think they wanted him even to go, but McLaren had no choice but to let him go, if that makes sense, because he no longer wanted to race for them, because of how unsuccessful they were being. And 2018 was the final straw for Alonso. But yeah, for Sainz in McLaren, I see a lot of positive things coming out of that. I don't think it'll be an instant success with Sainz and Norris, but I think towards the end of 2019 season, I think we will start seeing glimpses of the old McLaren, that race-winning McLaren that we know, coming back to Woking. And yeah, I look forward to seeing that, as I said, I don't think it'll be instant success, but I think, it will be. But as I say, in some sense, a podium next season, is that on the table? I think it is realistic. It just depends when and where, and it depends on the scenario. I don't think we should rule that off the table, because I think a podium could be on the table next season. But McLaren would have started development on the 2019 car, I believe, pretty early, based on the 2018 success they had. Right, anyway. Next, in fourth position. And as I say, once again, remember, any of these five teams, Force India, Red Bull, McLaren, Haas, and Renault, I think any of these five teams could be in any of them five positions. So Red Bull could be third, for all I know. McLaren could be fourth. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here, guys. But this, because I think it's going to be so close. But I think there'll be just enough of a gap to secure McLaren in fifth, though. Right, in fourth position is Haas. Haas F1, so not too much to talk about here. Romain Grosjean, a French driver, and Kevin Magnussen, the Danish driver from Denmark. So yeah, first let's talk about most experienced driver out of these two. Romain Grosjean, car number 8. So yeah, Romain Grosjean was born in Geneva, Switzerland, technically not even French. Once again, not another fake French driver, so yeah, sort of. But yeah, anyway, lives in France, brought up in France, I presume. But yeah, 10 podiums, 381 points during his career, 145 Grand Prix entered, and 2 podiums, both finishing second, and highest grid position is second. But yeah, Romain Grosjean, last season, 2018, could have been, I think, in a way, right. I want to say, right, last season I said there were a few drivers, I said it on Facebook, that I believe that could have got the the Ferrari seat. And I'll just name them drivers now, okay? And them drivers were Danny Kvyat, who I thought was the least likely, but the most likely from inside, if that makes sense. If they were to promote a driver, if they didn't feel confident with Romain Grosjean or the other driver that I'll say in a minute. Romain Grosjean was the favourite, in my opinion, in terms of experience and quality. And then the second most, or the second favourite, or the third favourite, had to be... actually, no, I said the fourth. I said Ricciardo, sorry. Daniel Ricciardo, if Red Bull don't sign him, or any other team really looks for him. And the other one would have to be Charles Leclerc. I thought any four of them drivers could have got the seat. Obviously, one of them was right. The other three were wrong, if that makes sense. I know you should only be allowed to make one prediction, but they were my four front runners for the seat. Obviously, anyone else was an outsider. So yeah, reason why I said Kvyat is because he was a simulating driver. He did show a glimpse of promise. He was young, he was talented. Ferrari could have brought him up for 1 or 2 seasons if they didn't feel confident maybe with other drivers. That to me seemed realistic. But obviously we all know that did not go to plan. Ricciardo, I think Ricciardo, because he's had past experience with Red Bull racing, Vettel, of course, and obviously he's had experience, you know, and he's a quality driver. He's won races, undoubtedly. I thought if you wanted a driver to be more or less there, had a good relationship with Vettel, surely Daniel Ricciardo's your man. Because you know they will get on well already. You don't take risk in the pairing, more or less. Okay, you know, the pairing, no matter whether Vettel wins or Ricciardo wins, will equally be happy, more or less, I think. More or less. And yeah, you know, it to me seemed logical. The other guy, though, I thought, based on 2017, 2016 performances, Grosjean, I thought, had to be, though, maybe on par of getting the seat alongside Daniel Ricciardo, be the two top runners. But what let Ricciardo down is he didn't want to go to... He wanted Mercedes more than Ferrari, but Mercedes did not want to hire him, of what I've heard. So instead he looked at going to Renault, and Renault came up with the offer and gave him that offer, and then he took it. Kvyat was, you know, told no, more or less, to his face, by Ferrari. Then obviously you're only left with now Charles Leclerc and Romain Grosjean. Okay, it wasn't all settled just like that, but you had Charles Leclerc and Grosjean. At the start, I think, you know, first 4 races, Romain Grosjean was still the favourite to take that 2019 Ferrari seat until 2020. But, and here's the big but, Charles Leclerc, all of a sudden, at Baku, became too good to be true. And Romain Grosjean did not respond. And when he did respond, it was too late. Decision made, Raikkonen retired, well, off to Sauber, Charles Leclerc into Ferrari. And in my opinion, them first 9 races for Romain Grosjean, whether you agree or disagree with me, were the most crucial races of Romain Grosjean's Formula 1 career. And yeah, he blew them. I'm not going to say it was his fault, all of it. No. Melbourne certainly wasn't. I'm not going to say that was the team's fault either. But there were chances where he could have got points, he didn't get points. And then obviously you had the unfortunate scenarios like Melbourne, and others like that. But yeah, as I just say, this was Romain Grosjean's year to get Ferrari, and he missed by a long shot. And obviously that resulted in Charles Leclerc being promoted into that Ferrari seat. Is it his only chance? Most probably. Was it his best chance? Definitely. I don't know whether any other pundits or people would agree with that. But yeah, I just think, for me, Romain Grosjean just did not do a good enough job in them first 9 races and failed. And that resulted in, ultimately, a denial of being given one of the most top jobs in Formula 1 with Ferrari. Next, Kevin Magnussen, the Danish driver, of course. Yeah, and Kevin Magnussen, car number 20, been in Formula 1 now for a few seasons, already had a 1 podium now, entered 82 Grand Prix as of yet. So yeah, pretty successful actually, overall. In fact, he was born in Roskilde, Denmark. So yeah, Kevin Magnussen, well, 2018 and 2017 for him has been 2 good, consistent seasons. Certainly the best Haas driver of 2018, undoubtedly. But yeah, for me, yeah, what can I say? Yeah, there's not much I can really say much. I think if he has another 2019 like that, who knows where he could be in 2020 or even 2021. But at the same time, I don't want to say Haas are going to be still in this position in 2020 or 2021. In fact, Haas could be one of the top cars in that era. I think Haas have improved massively. Finishing, I think, where did they finish last season? 5th or 4th? Somewhere amazing in that position. Best result for Haas in Formula 1, undoubtedly, unquestionably. So, yeah, for me, all I can say is, for Haas, they must do one better. Last season, they had 1 or 2 excuses. But the next season, I don't think they have any excuses. Because this Formula 1's a cutthroat business, don't get me wrong. Haas have done a very, very good job during that time in Formula 1. But last season, there were 1 or 2 issues. Maybe not in the team structure, but in the pit stop. If we remember rightly, back to Melbourne 2018, almost a year ago, both cars come in for a pit stop, one consecutively after another. So basically, Magnussen, I think, was first, then Grosjean. And what do we know? The tyres were not put on correctly and caused a double DNF. That cost for Haas an awesome start to their 2018 campaign, and probably cost them also 4th in the championship. But yeah, as I say, there were mistakes made by that Haas team, or Haas, and yeah, for me, they've got to make sure them mistakes do not repeat themselves in 2019, and yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Right, next up in 3rd place is Renault F1. And yeah, in a way, we all know what's happening to Carlos Sainz. Let's start with Sainz first, off to McLaren. But let's talk about Nico Hülkenberg before we get on to the Sainz's replacement. So Nico Hülkenberg will be staying with the Renault team for another season. And yeah, Hülkenberg, Mr. Consistent, should I say. And yeah, quite honestly, he is the most consistent driver, I think, in Formula 1 currently. Because, yeah, he's 474 points, 158 races entered. Highest race finishing position is 4th times 3. Highest grid position is a pole position. So, for me, Hülkenberg last season, I remember at the start of the season, I'm pretty sure every qualifying he was finishing 7th, and every single race he was finishing 7th. And in the championship, I'm pretty sure he finished 7th. Let's have a quick look, actually, what happened. So who finished 7th? I'm pretty sure it was Hulkenberg. It's either Hulkenberg or Magnussen. It was Hulkenberg. 69 points to Perez, 62, who finished 8th. Magnussen finished 9th, so yeah. So yeah, as I said, okay. You know, for me, you know, Magnussen, Hulkenberg is Mr. Consistent. Last season proved it, but, you know, what will 2019 prove about him? The only thing I'm concerned about Hulkenberg, you know, if he ever was in a championship fight, does he have that desire, hunger, does he have that racecraft, like maybe other drivers, to, you know, win a world championship? I'm just not convinced by him. You know, I've never have been. You know, he's certainly a talented driver. I think he's one of the world's 20 best drivers, but I don't think he's got the talent to pull off a world championship winning season. But his teammate alongside him, I certainly know does. In replacement of Carlos Sainz, this man, Daniel Ricciardo, gone to Renault, of course, for 2019 and 2020. And yeah, so far in his Formula 1 career, he's entered 150 Grand Prix, 29 podiums, 986 race points. And highest finishing position is first with 7 wins to his name. And highest is grid position is a pole position. So yeah, Daniel Ricciardo, well, first of all, beat Sebastian Vettel in 2014. We cannot deny that fact. That is a fact. We have to also understand, when considering that, Vettel did take time to adjust to that 2014 car, and he's taken time to adjust to the to the hybrid era, really. Didn't take him too long, took him a season to get going to that, because he was used to the V8s, and to the way the V8s were aerodynamically also. But yeah, like I was saying, yeah, you know, Daniel Ricciardo, you know, off to Renault. I think, you know, this is what's going to give Renault their best championship. 3rd place, I think, you know, last season finishing in 4th was a massive step up for Renault. Honestly, I'm not saying they dominated 4th, certainly not, but to finish quite convincingly in 4th, in the end, that's a thumbs up from me. And because of Red Bull's Honda switch, you know, for me, that promotes them up to another place. Will podiums be on the table? Well, first of all, they've got to deal with Mercedes and Ferrari. But I don't see any reasons why not. Because Mercedes and Ferrari, you know, will have an off day. And when that off day is going to happen, Renault will be there to capitalise, I'm pretty sure. And that is going to be giving them grace. A bit like Red Bull. Like Mercedes and Ferrari were always at the top. But when Mercedes and Ferrari had them off days, Red Bull were there to capitalise. And whether that was a race win, whether that was a podium or a pole position, it was still something. And that is what I think is going to happen to Renault here. I think Renault will inherit 3rd place. They will not earn 3rd place because I don't think, you know, they've got the capabilities yet, but they'll inherit 3rd place. And whether you inherit it or you don't inherit it, that's you know, a different debate. But I think they'll inherit that 3rd place from Red Bull because of the Honda switch, and this will be the start, maybe, of Renault's return to the top of Formula 1, potentially. It's still going to take them quite a long few seasons, but, you know, I think, you know, if I actually, let's say, I just want to actually say something else. If I had to pick, okay, in all honesty, right, obviously we've got a big aero change potentially coming for 2021, an engine change, but if I had to pick 3 teams that actually are going to be in 2021, the best 3 teams that you could probably be in, I would actually probably have to say Haas F1, Renault F1, and Ferrari F1. These are probably going to be the next big 3 on the grid. I honestly think that. Because Mercedes, I'm not saying Mercedes can't be there, but I don't think they will be there. I don't think Red Bull will be there. McLaren, they might start getting there eventually, but it's still going to be a very good few years. I don't see McLaren being in that big three for another maybe 3 or 4 seasons at best. But yeah, for Renault, I think they will be in 2019 completing that one of the big three alongside Mercedes and Ferrari. And I think we should welcome them to that big three if they do it. So yeah, what can I say? And I think we'll be saying goodbye to Red Bull in that big three. And when I say big three, in Formula One, I'm not saying 3 teams are the biggest teams, but right, a bit like football. Imagine you've got in a way in football the top 4, okay? That's the Champions League places. You've got then 7th to 10th or 5th to 10th. This is the mid-table, sort of. And then you've got 15th or 10th to 15th. This is sort of bottom mid-table. And then you've got the relegation battle. In Formula 1, you've got a similar system, except you can't get relegated. You've got a similar system. You've got the big three, which is currently based on 2018. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, but technically the other way around. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, in that order. Sort of first, best to worst. Okay, they are your big three. Then the next few are from, let's say, 4th to 6th. Okay? Or 4th to 7th. And this is the midfield. And that consists of teams like Force India, Haas, McLaren currently, and Renault. Renault currently leading the way in that battle. Then you've got, the worst teams. The battle for the number or the position no one wants. And that consists of Sauber, Toro Rosso, Williams. May not be in that order next year, but it was in that order last year. And that's what I mean. That's the big three. So, just so you understand what the big three are, it's Renault, it'll probably be Renault, Mercedes, Ferrari, I think, personally. And in second place, and now we're coming on to our final 2 teams, and in a way, I'm sad that this video will be ending very, very shortly. So, in second place, please give a drum roll. It will be, in my opinion, for 2019, Mercedes F1. And yes, Mercedes F1, obviously 5-time champions. Lewis Hamilton, 5-time world champion in Formula 1 now. Fabulous achievement 2018 was for them. But I just don't think they're going to do it for a 6th year. But if they do, they will become Formula 1's most successful Formula 1 team in some sense, because they'll have the most consecutive world championships. But I think it will be close once again between them, Ferrari and Mercedes. I don't think it will be a clear cut, if you know what I mean. I don't think it will be all one way. So that's why I've put it. Well, that's why I believe, Ferrari will just gain something and enough to win the championship. But I think Lewis Hamilton will finish, obviously, 2nd. I said this in my previous video. Bottas will finish 3rd. Vettel will finish 1st. And yeah, I think based on that, I do have to say Hamilton and Bottas will not score enough points to outscore Vettel and Leclerc in the championship. And yeah, in my opinion, this will result in the downfall of Mercedes ultimately and Hamilton. And yeah, obviously same driver lineup, Hamilton and Bottas. Just give you a quick facts on first Valtteri Bottas before we go on to our 5-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton. So, I've accidentally clicked on Raikkonen. Right, Bottas. So Bottas is a Finnish driver from Nassatola, Finland. Okay, was born in 1989. So far, had 30 podiums in his Formula One career. 963 points, 963 podiums, 963 points, 119 races entered. So actually, pretty damn decent stats when you think of it. Never won a world championship. Only had 3 race wins in his career, and highest grid position is first. So yeah, for me, Bottas' last season though in 2018 was disappointing, and yeah, I guess he did enough to warrant himself staying maybe at Mercedes in 2019. But if he has another season like that, I'm sorry, it's out the door for me. For Bottas, I don't think I hope he doesn't have another season like that, but I just don't see much life in him. Where's the life? As a driver, he seems a lackluster driver. And in a way, there's so many of them that I could say that are so lackluster. But there seems to be no life in him as a driver. Anyway, coming on to our 5-time world champion, Lewis Hamilton, hashtag car number 44. So Lewis Hamilton from a local place, Stevenage, quite local to where I was born in Milton Keynes. He was born in 1985, which makes him 33 years old now. Pretty old now, in some sense. I think he's 3rd or 4th oldest driver on the grid for next year. But yeah, during his career, obviously, 134 podiums, 3,018 points, 229 races entered, and 5 world championships. 73 race wins, and highest grid position is obviously first. So yeah, 5-time world champion, defending world champion for 2019, of course. So yeah, what can he do for 2019? I'm not sure. I think this will be the downfall year of Hamilton and Mercedes. Red Bull had a downfall year in 2014, but I think this will be now Mercedes' downfall year. Obviously, and that's a shame, really, because obviously I like Mercedes, I like Hamilton. I'm not a fan of Hamilton, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of, Mercedes, but I do like the competition between Vettel and Hamilton and the competition between Mercedes and Ferrari over the last few years, and I hope that continues into 2019. But yeah. Anyway, finally, on to the final team then of today, and there's only one team left. You've guessed it, Scuderia Ferrari. After 11 seasons or 11 years of waiting, I think this will be Ferrari's year. And Ferrari, every single year since 2015, have made a improvement. And I think, this will be Ferrari's best year. And you know what? I think Ferrari will get it right this year, sorry. And the reason why I say that is because last year, there were times, first of all, let me just discuss this. First of all, things have changed at Ferrari. New team boss, new team principal in Mattia Benito, in replacement of Maurizio Arriva-Bene, former team principal. But in a way, last year, the reason why I agree that Maurizio had to go, in a way, is because I'm thankful for what Maurizio's done. He's done a great job with that Ferrari team. But at the same time, I think Maurizio did not make any of the right strategy calls. Okay, yeah, you could say Vettel messed up in Germany, USA. But the championship was over in USA. Let's get that right. Championship was over in Japan. The championship was over from Italy, in my opinion. Honestly. Belgium, I think Vettel may have made an error. But let's be honest, where did the championship go wrong? Hungary, Vettel was still in the championship. Belgium, Vettel actually got himself back in the championship. But Italy, Ferrari made a strategic error in qualifying. and they made a blooper in the race. And I think it wasn't over in qualifying, but the race, that was biting point. Sorry to say, that was the biting point. Because, right, Vettel got out qualified by Kimi Raikkonen first of all. Let's start there. Then, going into race, turn 1, Ferrari were allowing Kimi Raikkonen, who wasn't even a championship contender, okay, to race his teammate. How does, like, it's just stupid. Like, you should have told Kimi Raikkonen, right, Kimi Raikkonen, sorry, you're not staying at Ferrari next season, sorry to say, but we're going to have to ask you to let Vettel through at the first corner. I know you don't want to do it, I know it is team orders, but, look, Vettel's in the fight for a championship, you're just helping us win the Constructors, so let's get second with you, let's get you a podium. Obviously, we'll try and get the 1-2, okay? But let's make sure Vettel wins this race. And instead, no, let's let Vettel and Raikkonen race. And Raikkonen and Vettel were racing into turn 1. They were racing into turn 2. And obviously, Vettel was compromised into turn 2. This allowed Hamilton a smell of overtaking Vettel, and Hamilton took that. And it resulted in a little bit of contact, ultimately resulting in Vettel spinning around, ending up in dead last, more or less, and with some wing damage. Luckily, there was a safety car, because it could have been a lot worse. But the point is, it could have been prevented. It really could have. And this championship, I think everyone is right, could have been Vettel's championship, but Ferrari made strategic errors. Singapore, I can't really blame on Ferrari. I guess you could say the upgrades that they brought were not good enough, did not quite meet the cut, but the car was there more or less. The car, I don't think we can argue, it could have had capabilities of winning that race, but I think Mercedes and Red Bull did do a better job. Then we went into Russia, I think, or it was either Russia or Japan. Pretty sure it was Russia. Russia, not really much they could do. They couldn't really respond. At that, after Italy and Singapore, championship gone. Vettel tried to do his best with the car he had. Didn't have quite as much pace to match the the Mercedes, in all honesty, on that weekend either. Then it was Japan, I believe, and Japan, yeah, Ferrari again made a strategic error in Japan qualifying, which resulted in, I know a lot of the pundits say Vettel had the perfect track conditions, but how did he have the perfect track conditions when it was raining? Come on, tell me, boys. Not being funny, when it's raining, you don't have perfect track conditions, and it resulted in Vettel finishing 9th and having to make another comeback drive, and that put more pressure on Vettel. Ultimately, he hit Verstappen when trying to overtake Verstappen. That resulted in more pressure on Vettel. Then USA, obviously, yeah, again, obviously, I think Vettel was up through the roof at this point in terms of frustration levels, because obviously he tried to kept on telling himself it ain't over till it's over, but in a way everyone knew it was over, he knew it was over, and you could tell by his body language he was frustrated with Ferrari and with the team. And Ferrari, I don't think, made enough strategy calls. And we actually saw it, I think, in a way, right, I know Germany, I actually say, let's actually look back at Ferrari at Germany or Austria. In fact, this is another good, actually, example of it earlier on in the season, actually. Because, actually, in Austria, Vettel was behind Raikkonen. Surely, they must have known Raikkonen wasn't a championship contender then. After the first 4 rounds, you must know who your championship contender is. Mercedes knew who it was. Not being funny, Mercedes knew their championship contender after round, 4 or 5 or 6 maybe? But with Vettel, they couldn't even make a decision to tell Raikkonen to give up 3 points. It would have been 3 points more for Vettel. And yeah, this, just small details are very, very important in Formula One. And Germany took them so long to make a decision whether or not Vettel and Raikkonen should race. And when it did, it took them 5 laps to get Raikkonen out of the way. Why did it take so long? It's like Ferrari were doodling, should I say, with team orders last year. But with Charles Leclerc and Mattia Benito, I'm pretty sure Charles Leclerc will be a future champion maybe at one point. But I think next year, this will be about Ferrari and Vettel. They will want to get justice for what failed last year. And I'm pretty sure Mattia Benito will probably implement team orders much more efficiently than what basically Arriva Bene did. So yeah, 39 points though so far Charles Leclerc has scored out of 21 races. That to me shows a sign of a very, very talented driver. Place of birth Monte Carlo in Monaco. So yeah, I can't wait to see Charles Leclerc in that position next year. Obviously, I don't know how he will do. We don't know yet, but I cannot wait myself. And finally, obviously, I've already predicted him to be world champion, and I've sort of ranted on about Ferrari's team orders. But yeah, it's got to me. For me, this is either this year or 2020 is Vettel's final probably chances of getting a 5th world championship. And yeah, reason why I say that, I don't want to say that, but the reason why I say that is because, he is running out of time. He's 31 years old now. He's getting on. He's had 4 world championships anyway. I think he's had an amazing career myself anyway. 52 race wins. Highest grid position, obviously, first. Born in Heppenheim, Germany. 220 races entered, 2,745 points scored in Formula 1 so far, and 111 podiums. So yeah, for me, Vettel either must win the championship either in 2019 or in 2020, and if fails to do so, I think he will be off elsewhere. May not leave Formula 1, probably elsewhere in the Formula 1 paddock. Mercedes, back to Red Bull, who knows? Maybe McLaren, who knows where Vettel will go. But yeah, for me, what now needs to happen at Ferrari, as I say, is Ferrari first of all needs to make sure they're going to be much, much more stricter on team orders. Take that pressure off Vettel, because at Red Bull, Vettel, it was very, very clear. Vettel had no pressure on him, whereas now, being a Ferrari driver, he has a ton of pressure, But yeah, he's achieved a lot more than what Fernando Alonso has achieved so far in his time at Ferrari. So that's one thing I think Vettel can be proud of. But I'm pretty sure Vettel won't be proud until the job is done, until he's won that World Championship. And will that be 2019? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, that is my top 10. So I'll just give you a recap on my top 10. So in 10th place is Toro Rosso, followed by Williams in 9th. In 8th, I've put Sauber, 7th, Racing Point, 6th, Red Bull, 5th, McLaren, 4th, Haas, 3rd, Renault, 2nd, Mercedes, and Ferrari in 1st. So there we go. That is my top 10 team championship predictions. The next video will be, in a way, a bit of an updated video in terms of this. I will be doing a actual update sort of thing on my team and driver championship predictions. if any changes. So I will post that out. Follow me on Facebook, friend request me, please do. My name's Julian O'Matany, and please also like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you're new to the channel, and take it easy. Have a good one.